to put a little bit of responsibility on you. Like for me, I've listened to you since the Red Band Olive Garden days. That's the very beginning. And there was something in the way you communicated about the world. Maybe there was others, but you were the one I was aware of. Is you're open-minded and like loving towards the world, especially as the podcast developed. Like you just demonstrated and lived this kind of just kindness, or maybe even like lack of jealousy in your own little profession of comedy. It was clear that you didn't succumb to the weaker aspects of human nature, and thereby inspire like people like me, who I was naturally probably, especially in like the 20s, early 20s, kind of jealous of the success of others. And you're really the primary person that taught me to truly celebrate the success of others. And so, by way of question, you kind of have a role in this of making a better 2025. You have such a big megaphone. Is there something you think you can do on this podcast with the words, the way you talk, the things you discuss that could create a better 2025?
I think if anything, I could help in leading by example, but that's only going to help the people that are listening. I don't know what else I can do in terms of like make the world a better place other than express my hopes and wishes for that and just try to be as nice as I can to people as often as I can. But I also think that I've fallen into this weird category, particularly with the Spotify deal, where I'm one of them now. I'm not a regular person anymore. Now I'm like some famous rich guy.
Yeah.
So you go from being a regular person to a famous rich guy that's out of touch, and that's a real issue whenever you're talking about the economy, about just real life problems.
It's interesting. It kind of hurts my heart to hear people say about Elon Musk, he's just a billionaire.
Yeah.
It's an interesting statement, but I think if you just continue being you and he continue being him, I think people are just voicing their worry that you become some rich guy.
I don't even know if they're doing that. I think they're just finding the way he describes it, an attack vector.
Right.
Yeah. And I think he's right. I think they just, they can dismiss you by just saying, oh, you're just a that, you're easily definable.
Right. But there's truth to that. If you're not careful, you can become out of touch. But that's an interesting thing. Like, why haven't you become out of touch? Like, as a human off the podcast, you don't act like you talk to somebody like me. You don't talk like a famous person, or you don't act rich. Like you're better than others. There's a certain, listen, I've talked to quite a few. You have too, but I've talked to a especially kind of group of people that are like Nobel Prize winners, let's say. They sometimes have an air to them that's of arrogance.
Yeah.
And you don't. What's that about?
Well, you got to know what that is, right? Like that air of arrogance comes from drinking your own Kool-Aid. You start believing that somehow or another, just because you're getting praise from all these people, that you really are something different. Usually it exemplifies there's something there. Where there's a lack of struggle, and I think struggle is probably one of the most important balancing tools that a person can have. And for me, I struggle mentally and I struggle physically. I struggle mentally in that like we were talking about on the podcast we did previously, you and I on my podcast, that I'm not a fan of my work. I'm not a fan of what I do. I'm my harshest critic. Yeah. So anytime anybody says something bad about me, I'm like, listen, I said way worse about myself. I don't like anything I do. I'm ruthlessly introspective. And I will continue to be that way because that's the only way you can be good as a comedian. There's no other way. You can't just think you're awesome and just go out there. You have to be like picking apart everything you do. But there's a balance to that too, because you have to have enough confidence to go out there and perform.
And do it, yeah.
You can't think, oh my God, I suck. I know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing because I put in all that work. And one of the reasons why I put in all that work is I don't like the end result most of the time. So I need to work at it all the time. And then there's physical struggle, which I think balances everything out. without physical struggle, I always make the analogy that the body is in a lot of ways like a battery, where if you have extra charge, it's like it leaks out of the top and becomes unmanageable and messy. And that's how my psyche is. If I have too much energy, if I'm not exerting myself in a violent way, like an explosive way, like wearing myself out, I just don't like the way the world is. I don't like the way I interface with the world. I'm too tense. I'm too quick to be upset about things. But when I work out hard and I put in a brutal training session, everything's fine.